This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. One of the strangest accidents in the history of sport. It happened today at a soccer stadium in Sheffield, England, as thousands of people clamored to get through a gate. Some of them were pushed into a fence and a barrier collapsed. At least 93 of them were killed. Perhaps twice as many were injured. Tom Fenton has our report.
Liverpool and Nottingham Forest had played only 6 minutes when officials saw that something had gone terribly wrong. It took time, too long, for police to realize just what had happened, and when they did, it was too late. Hundreds of spectators were being crushed in the overcrowded stands on the Liverpool side. Liverpool fans were desperately trying to escape. It was a matter of life or death. As the real extent of the tragedy became evident, everyone who could tried to help. Billboards were torn down and used as stretchers.
People were dying. Didn't you even see? People were dying.
Police were just standing up.
I seen people dying.
It's still not entirely clear how it happened. A huge crowd had showed up at Hillsborough Stadium, and as the pressure built up outside, things got out of control.
Coming into the ground where the police, don't know why, but they opened these doors, and there was thousands of people outside without tickets, and they all poured in, and I was carried into the ground. People were lying on each other like rabbits. I'm not joking. They were just with their heads cut, either dead or passed out, and the police couldn't do a thing about it.
Well, the purpose of opening the gate was to save their life and to save the crush on the people outside the turnstile.
British soccer for years has been plagued by disasters, by accidents such as fires or collapsing stands, and most of all by the behavior of unruly spectators. But this time it's different.
There was no sign at any time, both before and during those 6 minutes, of any violence or hooliganism.
For families and friends, this has been a day of devastating personal tragedy. And for British sport, this has been its darkest hour. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Sheffield.
In this country, California lawmen are searching tonight for a winery worker accused of going on a rampage yesterday that left his wife, 3 of her relatives, and a co-worker dead. More on that story now from John Blackstone.
The manhunt extends throughout California to the Mexican border as well as into other western states. The man being sought is Ramon Salcido, 28. Police believe his 3 young daughters, aged 2, 3, and 4, are with him and in extreme danger. There are still no firm leads, but sheriff's officers in Sonoma County, where the 5 brutal murders took place, are checking reports of sightings throughout the West.
We've gotten like 30 to 40 calls per hour.
At Salcido's home, children's toys were moved away from the door as his wife's body was carried outside. At the home of Salcido's mother-in-law, there were 3 more killings, so bloody, one official said the murder scene looked like a slaughterhouse. Salcido's mother-in-law was killed along with 2 of his wife's sisters, aged 8 and 12.
We really don't know at this point in time what the weapon was, but they were very, very violent injuries. And I can also report that it appears that the 2 young females were sexually molested.
The rampage continued to the small winery where Salcido worked. His supervisor was found dead in a car, shot in the face. In his neighborhood, Salcido was already known as a man with a hot temper.
To carry his gun with them and threaten to blow people's heads off and then go back to Mexico. You know, he thought it was cute.
At work, Salcido had been reprimanded recently for being late. At home, neighbors say he was jealous of his wife and her attempts to build a modeling career.
Husbands and wives fight, and, you know, they seem kind of loud at times.
In Fresno, California police are watching the home of Salcido's first wife. On Thursday, she had legal papers served on him demanding child support payments. The car Salcido is believed to have used was found 10 hours after the killings, but there was no sign where the wanted man or his 3 young daughters may be found. John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
With 13 bodies recovered, Mexican authorities believe they have now found all of the victims of a Mexican cult that was apparently practicing human sacrifice, and they're hunting now for at least 13 suspects believed responsible. 4 are already being questioned. Today in Texas, funeral services were held for college student Mark Kilroy, the only victim who's been identified thus far as a U.S. citizen. Ron Allen in Brownsville now with today's developments.
Mourners gathered at a church in Santa Fe, Texas to ease the grief of the Kilroy family and say goodbye to 21-year-old Mark, a college student abducted and murdered allegedly by a satanic drug smuggling cult in Matamoros, Mexico. In Miami, the mother of the man believed to be the ringleader of the cult, Adolfo Costanzo, defended her son. I cannot believe a person can have a change, she says, a rude change to be so horrible of what people are talking about now. During a raid last night at Costanzo's home in Mexico City, authorities say they found an altar and other cult paraphernalia, more evidence that links him to the murder of 13 people on a ranch near Matamoros. After interrogating 2 of the 5 men in Mexican custody again last night, U.S. authorities said the suspects confirmed they were members of a cult that practiced an obscure religious rite called Palo Mayombe, a voodoo ritual that involves human sacrifice. According to police, the suspects said they were recruited by Costanzo and his girlfriend, Sarah Aldrete, and that a film called The Believers was used to teach them about the rituals.
They keep bringing the movie up. Sarah told them to watch it. They talk about it like if that had something to do in changing them going to human sacrifice.
For now, investigators have stopped looking for more bodies at the ranch until they can get specific information about possible additional victims.
Yesterday, talking to 2 of the guys that are in jail in Matamoros, I don't think there's any more, but there could be.
On both sides of the border, relatives continue arriving at police stations with pictures of missing loved ones. This woman says her teenage son has been missing for 7 months. She's been to the morgue but can't tell if he's among the badly decomposed bodies. So far, only 6 of the victims have been positively identified. Authorities plan to seek warrants early next week for as many as 6 more suspects who allegedly were present at what has come to be known as the killing field. Ron Allen, CBS News, Brownsville, Texas.
And still ahead on the CBS Evening News, outgo weekend for income taxes, and later Bruce Hall on a Native American in danger of life and limb.
For Post Natural Bran Flakes, John Newcomb on getting the best out of life.
Staying on top requires a good serve, strong approach, and a great put away.
Reach for the best tasting high fiber Bran Flake. Post Bran Flakes at their best.
The Honda Lawnmower. It was first with a blade brake clutch that stops the blade without stopping the engine. First with a maintenance-free automotive-type shaft drive. And first with an easy-starting overhead valve engine. It's no wonder this is the first lawnmower good enough to be a Honda.
You're on your way.
Who would have figured it? I grow up in the city and end up testing products for the farm. Like this one from Dow. We study its effects in the classroom and check the results in the field. It yields more food, more profits for family farmers, and greater groundwater protection. But Dow gave me a grant to find out how to make it work even better. You know, I like being a city kid working in a cornfield.
Dow lets you do great things.
When I need a laxative, I use Docalax.
Doris Jones talks about Docalax.
I like Docalax because it's very mild and gentle and dependable.
Docalax, tablets and suppositories.
Docalax works every single time.
On this Income Tax Day weekend, Illinois offered gamblers a shot at tens of millions of dollars in taxable income, and millions went after it. Christine Negroni reports now on the draw of luck and the luck of the draw.
A betting frenzy has brought would-be millionaires from all over the country to Illinois for a chance at the largest lottery jackpot in U.S. history. Ron Josephek of Elizabeth, New Jersey, flew into Chicago to buy $700 worth of tickets.
I've never been to Chicago, so I'm here at least, and I'm just here to play the lottery.
He was not alone. At Chicago's O'Hare Airport, many travelers waited in long lines and risked missing their planes to take a flight of fancy.
Take a chance. You have to take a chance. If you take no chance, you have no chance.
The jackpot could go as high as $70 million by tonight's random drawing of 6 numbers.
There has never been a lotto game in the entire world that has ever gone over this, and it happened in Illinois, and I can't believe it.
Lotto counters were besieged by hordes of Hoosiers who crossed the border to buy tickets. And among Illinoisans, even the governor was forced to wait with the masses.
Oh, that's $3 already? Oh, okay, wait a second now. I'm in over my head already.
Even those with little money to travel were buying their tickets to dream.
Well, I don't have that much anyway, so I'm trying to take a chance to get some more.
Tickets were being sold at a rate of $1.5 million every hour, though the chance of winning is 13 million to 1. Christine Negroni, CBS News, Chicago.
A lot more money is at stake in the fiscal 1990 budget worked out this week by President Bush and congressional leaders, of course. The price tag for that is more than $1 trillion. But the deal carries a political price as well, and we have more on that now from White House correspondent Wyatt Andrews.
Cooperation. The budget agreement spirit now establishes Mr. Bush as the president Congress loves to trust. The confrontational atmosphere of the Reagan years has subsided, but the question is, does that do the country any good? In the Contra aid package, for example, Mr. Bush gave in on his belief in military aid to the Contras and gave Congress a future veto over humanitarian aid. But in the rush for a unified foreign policy, experts say, Mr. Bush may have splintered the power of his office.
And that's a worry no president wants to leave the presidency weaker than when he found it.
In the budget agreement, congressional Democrats may have lost the most. In their spirit of compromise, the Democrats chose to ignore warnings from their own experts that the president's budget estimates are too rosy, as much as $20 billion off the mark. The widely praised budget deal may not meet the test of reality.
At that time, they're going to have to look at where interest rates are and try to make some new projections with regards to where we're going in the future. My hope is that those projections will be more realistic.
Compromise goes on all the time in Washington, but this new style takes all the fights and the nastiness backstage. If you're a supporter of liberal Democrats, for example, how do you know that they didn't just cave in on social spending? If you voted for Mr. Bush, how do you know how hard he fought for the Contras?
The deals which help the president win the trust of Congress can also cost him trust.
No question, it's going to have to degrade his credibility. When he says he means something, people are always going to now be saying, well, did he really, or will he tomorrow?
For the moment, the White House believes it's on a roll, seeing the Contra deal and the budget outline as accomplishments far more important than any criticism that Mr. Bush has no ideology. In this White House, cutting the deal is its own ideology. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, the White House.
U.S. intelligence officials have confirmed that a West German businessman is the main supplier of nuclear materials to countries secretly trying to make atomic weapons. That, according to a report on the CBS News broadcast 60 Minutes, which will broadcast tomorrow night. The report also claims that West Germany has repeatedly turned down U.S. requests to close the businessman's black market operations.
I want something round and crisp and buttery tasting, a taste so good, nothing can take its place. It's not just anyone, it's the only one that just won't miss. When I want a cracker, I want a Ritz. That special taste always hits the spot. No other cracker has got what it's got. When I want a cracker, I want a Ritz. Nabisco.
When you weigh one diet against another, consider this. If you don't get enough protein when you diet to lose fat, you might lose muscle. Protein can help you keep muscle while you lose fat. And Special K has the highest level of dietary protein available in a cereal. So exercise your good judgment too. Include this Special K breakfast in your balanced diet and make a firm commitment to your body. Special K. Keep the muscle. Lose the fat.
We think the new 1989 John Deere walk-behind is terrific, but take it for a little test drive. Try it for a full month. If you're not completely happy, return it.
This is some offer.
It's some more.
Today's X-Lax is a good morning, guaranteed.
Good morning. Good morning.
Medical experts agree. X-Lax actually restores the level of natural fluid in your system.
Good morning.
X-Lax, the sure way back to natural regularity. Guaranteed.
As we were saying just a minute ago, it's that time of year again, Income Tax Day, and that's our Washington Notebook focus tonight. Because April 15th falls on a Saturday, the government this year is extending the deadline until Monday, and some residents of upstate New York and all of New England get until Tuesday because their returns are processed in Massachusetts, where Monday is a holiday too. But even with all that, it's a time of year that everyone dreads.
Taxpayers seem to despise the income tax more than any other tax they pay.
It's the time of year that Americans hate the most, lining up for an accountant to try to figure out how to even pay the taxes, then waiting in line at the post office to get the confusing pile of forms in on time, and suspecting that despite the tax reforms of the past 2 years, all is still not right.
For most people, the government is charging them more and giving them less in services. So government is not nearly as good a deal as it used to be.
Although the government raises nearly $1 trillion in taxes, it's not enough to pay the bills. Out of each tax dollar, 26 cents goes to defense, 29 cents to Social Security and Medicare, 5 cents to the poor for welfare and food stamps, 25 cents for things like highways and the environment, and 15 cents to pay the national debt.
Now, 15 cents on the dollar that we pay in income tax may not sound like very much, but it's increasing quite dramatically. And we can't do anything about it. We've got to continue to pay that unless we pay off our debt. That is growing year by year, absorbing more and more of our tax dollars. Eventually, we're not going to have the money to pay for anything else.
Tax reformers have been working to ensure that the taxes that are raised are shared more equally by rich and poor, but with only mixed success.
I think tax reform is a misnomer. What we've seen occurring in this country over the past 6, 7, 8 years is a transfer of tax liability squarely onto the backs of the middle class and the lower middle class. And we see upper income taxpayers paying less and less taxes.
Tax reform slashed nearly a quarter of the breaks for the super rich, who now pay some taxes. But the taxes haven't kept pace with the profits that poured in because of the big cuts in corporate taxes during the Reagan years. The majority of Americans saw their tax cuts offset by huge increases in Social Security payments. So tax experts say there's still a lot of work to be done.
Taxes are always a fight because everybody would just as soon not pay as long as the others did pay. But I think right now the pendulum is swinging in the direction of making the system fairer. We need to get on that pendulum and ride it and take advantage of the political situation.
Let me show you a Puerto Rico most people never see. I know a tiny village where the songs of my ancestors fill the air. I know a country inn where the morning coffee is yesterday's harvest. I know special horses that learn their steps from the conquistadors. I know places no one knows.
You're looking at a list of foods that have more fiber per serving than prunes. Prunes, the high-fiber fruit.
If every time you look around it seems like your rug is dirty, try Woolite Spot and Stain Rug Cleaner. Because it contains the ingredient Fiber Pel, it keeps your heavy traffic areas cleaner longer than the other liquid spray. Trust Woolite Spot and Stain Rug Cleaner.
This sweet young thing just told my husband he's a very attractive, older man. I'm his age, so what does that make me?
Oil of Olay.
An older woman? Oh, never.
So similar to the fluid in young skin, penetrating quickly, adding softness and fullness.
I don't intend to grow old gracefully.
Oil of Olay.
Age looks so much better on a man.
Original and now sensitive.
A fire today in Chicago's River North District destroyed a square block of buildings that housed at least 14 art galleries. One gallery owner put losses in artwork at about $50 million. Cause is not known, but one official said the fire spread quickly because building renovators had disconnected the pipe system. Oil from the Exxon tanker spill washed up on beaches of a second Alaska National Park today. Exxon submitted a detailed cleanup plan under a Coast Guard deadline, and the Coast Guard chief vowed to take names if the work isn't done fast. James Hattori has the latest.
The small town of Homer, Alaska, almost 200 miles southwest of Valdez, is bracing for the worst. 3 weeks after the Exxon Valdez disgorged its deadly cargo into Prince William Sound, the oil has spread over 3,000 square miles. In Homer, where fishing is the town's main livelihood, volunteers rush to build log booms in hopes of slowing the unstoppable.
It's frantic, yes. We're just doing as much as we can. The oil's around the corner, and we're going to get out as many booms as we can. I got to run, thanks.
Farther up the coast, Admiral Paul Yost, the man President Bush appointed to take charge of the cleanup, surveyed the blackened beaches of Eleanor Island today, but was optimistic about the outcome of the cleanup.
Pretty bad, but this will clean up.
More than half of the 10 million gallons spilled remains on the water. Much of that oil is now thick and difficult to pick up. The Coast Guard says of 40 skimmers available for the cleanup, only 8 or 9 are effective. Around Eleanor Island, fishermen string boom around patches of brownish, oily scum. Their skills handling nets come in handy. Now they catch oil instead of fish.
They're heroes, the fishermen here are. They've gone out and fought while everybody else has sat back and tried to plan.
Enough oil has drifted south to begin cleaning 60 beaches, unlikely to be contaminated again. Exxon may soon abandon the notion of trying to scour the shoreline rock by rock.
This is clearly futile, given the hundreds of miles of coastline.
The Coast Guard says the answer may be high-pressure hot water spraying to flush oil from all but the most environmentally sensitive beaches. After 3 weeks, it's still hard to grasp the destruction wreaked by the spill. Parts of Prince William Sound seem void of life.
Looks like the word's got out, man. The diner's closed.
Fishermen, the Coast Guard, and Exxon are making slow progress. And as from the beginning, it is the oil which remains in charge. James Hattori, CBS News, Valdez, Alaska.
Gasoline prices have been rising steadily ever since the Alaska spill, but most analysts say that to find the real reason, look somewhere else. Lynn Brown has more on that.
So the gas wars is heating up. So far, we've had several calls, people calling
At gas pumps nationwide, prices have risen 10 cents a gallon to reach their highest level in 3 years. Although the Alaskan oil spill is being blamed for some of the spurt, analysts say the rising price of crude oil is the real culprit.
Gasoline prices started to go up earlier this year, around the end of February, early in March, just to try to catch up with the price of crude oil.
Another underlying factor, the high price of clean air.
Consumers were going to pay more anyway because of higher refining costs to protect the environment. Consumers were probably going to pay more anyway because of gasoline consumption rising in the summer.
Right now, the price spurt probably isn't enough to make drivers think twice about driving.
They need gas. Gas is essential to them as the air they breathe.
But if prices keep going higher, drivers may begin to think twice about how essential gas really is.
If you get above $1.50, it's a whole new ballgame.
But $1.50 a gallon gasoline doesn't seem to be in the cards, at least right away.
Those prices will ease some, but they'll still be higher than they were last summer.
The question remains, is the price hike real, or is it just oil company greed? A special Senate subcommittee will convene in the nation's capital early next week to answer that question. Lynn Brown, CBS News, New York.
And we have just received late word on the search in California for the winery worker who allegedly killed 5 people yesterday, then disappeared with his 3 daughters. CBS News has learned that 2 of the girls were found dead today, the 3rd seriously wounded in a dump near Petaluma, California.
boy, fruit and fiber.
No, it's new fruit and fiber.
Beg your pardon?
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, they added 25% more dates, raisins, and walnuts to the dates, raisins, and walnuts. So now it's the great tasting fruit and fiber.
Just because they added more dates, raisins, and walnuts doesn't change the name. It's still fruit and fiber.
No. Matter of fact, it's so delicious, they should call it fruit and fruit and fruit and fruit and fiber.
New Post Fruit and Fiber cereal, now with 25% more dates, raisins, and walnuts.
Daddy, I want my teddy bear.
I want my soda.
Grandma, isn't this fun?
Oh. I want my Serta.
Why do people want a Serta? The answer is the exclusive Serta Surface. It tops firm support with layers of thick, luxurious comfort. It'll spoil you for sleeping any other way. So get a Serta Perfect Sleeper.
I want my Serta.
Ordinary windows versus windowscaping. Windows. Windowscaping. Windows. Windowscaping. See the windowscaping experts only at the Pella Window Store.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For heartburn and gas, your medical answer is Extra Strength Malox Plus. Its doctor-recommended formula neutralizes more than any leading antacid. Ask your doctor about Extra Strength Malox Plus.
30,000 runners started today's warm and humid Crescent City Classic in New Orleans, and among those who finished the 10-kilometer race were 3 members of the Soviet women's Olympic team, including last year's gold and bronze medal winners. And down in Atlanta, the annual Dogwood Festival is in full bloom this weekend, and so are the trees. But a lot of their relatives around the country are in big trouble. Bruce Hall now with more on that.
The soft white and pink blooms of the flowering dogwood trees blowing in April breezes have long heralded the end of winter. But now there is fear the sun may be setting on this annual rite of spring. A deadly fungus has been killing off stands of native dogwoods.
It's a new and virulent threat to the native dogwoods in the eastern United States, and we don't know a lot about it.
On this mountain range in North Carolina, almost all of the trees have been infected. About half have died, and pathologists expect the rest to die soon.
This process seems to take about 3 to 4 years once a tree becomes infected. It affects all size of dogwoods which have been here for 50 years as well as those who have been here for 5 years.
What researchers know about the deadly fungus is that it likes cool temperatures, high humidity, and little sunlight, thus sparing most residential dogwoods.
In the home yard where they have the sunlight hitting the foliage can dry. The trees are not under as much stress, hopefully. They do better, and they survive longer.
But homeowners are being told to check their leaves. The fungus first appears as small splotches, eventually spreading over the entire leaf. Finally, cankers form on the trunk, killing the tree.
It's very hard to deal with something that you know this little about.
The fungus was first spotted in the late 1970s in New York and has spread south along the mountains into 14 more states. The disease has also been found in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho.
Predicting how the disease is going to spread is a game for seers and soothsayers and not scientists.
But horticulturists at Rutgers University are fighting back.
We're trying to replace our native dogwood with something as close to it as possible in time of flowering and in appearance.
But it may be 2 years before the new hybrid plants are on the market, and much longer before they can match the beauty and size of today's dogwoods. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Atlanta.
That's the news. Connie Chung will be here tomorrow night, and Charles Carroll will be along first thing Sunday morning. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
This is CBS.